Good evening, this is Dr. Carol Kaelin coming to you live from First Christian Church here in Des Moines, Iowa. The event that is about to start is a discussion of the Fight for 15 movement, fighting for an increase in minimum wage to $15 an hour. And guest speakers are two members of an organization called Center for Worker Justice. And this talk will be bilingual, English and Spanish. The Center for Worker Justice works with low-wage workers, trying to organize them to get the pay raises and possibly trying to help them form a union and get their employers to recognize and accept that union. So people are still coming in. May have to put more chairs to extend the rows a little bit. The screen is ready for visual, video, and pictures. I'm streaming those for those who cannot attend in person, and for those who may want to watch this later. Pinging it off the building's Wi-Fi instead of using my hotspot. So hopefully it'll hold steady.
I did not even realize
I just told the presenters that this will be live streamed, and they're happy with that.
All right, thank you all for coming. I think there's a few other folks that might be pulling in the parking lot, but we're going to get started because we're very happy that some folks from the Center for Worker Justice of Eastern Iowa is here with us. And as you'll hear, I mean, they led the charge on passing what I've been saying this, and I'm pretty darn sure it's true because it's the only that I've heard of, but the first ever minimum wage ordinance in Iowa. So they led the charge. They do amazing work. We're going to hear from them how they did that, get some inspiration for what we're doing here in Polk County and beyond. Hopefully everyone has an agenda. So we're going to turn it over to our special guests here very shortly. I'll let them introduce themselves, also tell a little bit more about who the Center for Worker Justice is and what they do and the amazing work over in Eastern Iowa that they do. And so after we hear from them, we're just going to give folks an update on where we are at with the Polk County minimum wage ordinance campaign, and some things that we see coming up on the horizon as ways to take action and make our voice heard, and how we can keep pushing for a living wage, not just incremental steps to stem the bleeding that our communities feel. I see a lot of members, but if folks are not members, CCI, we love members. It's where our power comes from. We fund our own movement, not big corporations, big banks. And also we have a big event coming up on August 20th, actually at this church. So we're going to just talk real quick about our statewide convention. But without further ado, I want to turn it over to Rafael, Robin, and Marcial from the Center for Worker Justice. Thank you all.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rafael Morataya. I'm the director of the Worker Center in Iowa, Eastern Iowa. I've been there for almost 3 weeks. But the center is doing a turn 4 years in October. And I think they've been doing a great job there. The member has been pushing the energy, and they've been working in campaign that they've been changing people's life in Iowa City, right? We can see that they are fighting for wage theft. They fight determination for workers there for something to speak out. They have been fighting for discrimination, housing, education. I don't know if you hear about the community ID. They that was a good, right? It was a big victory to not only the people from the Johnson County, but for another example, the people can have a success, right? When they work together, the community with a different background, and the workers realize that everything is possible, right? Community ID, and this campaign they have a big success as well about the minimum wage. So that was a good campaign. They still are members Maximum account, and another campaign that they are working right now is housing. Housing, unfortunately, has been a big issue for all the communities across the cities, because when they try to eliminate affordable housing, it's a problem for workers in the community. So we are working in those projects there. So that's all for me. I don't want to take that much time for lunch, but we want to see a small video, right? Thank you.
To never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world.
I believe in fighting for change in our communities.
I believe in fair wages.
I believe in defending our rights.
Creo que todos tenemos el derecho de levantar nuestro voz.
I believe in dignity in our workplace.
I believe in a better America.
I believe in the Center for Worker Justice.
Because all of us are equal and all work has dignity.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Max.
Good afternoon, my name is Max.
Gracias por venir esta tarde y escuchar acerca del salario mínimo.
Thanks for coming this afternoon and hearing about the minimum wage.
Bueno, nosotros desde hace 4 años se fundó el Centro de Justicia Laboral.
4 years ago, since 4 years ago when the Center for Worker Justice was founded,
Siempre tuvimos unas líneas guía para luchar contra el robo de pago, para marchar hacia incrementar el salario mínimo.
some of our guiding principles were to fight against wage theft and fight for an increase in the minimum wage.
Y a raíz de que había muchas necesidades en más de 18 comunidades minoritarias que están en Iowa City.
These were issues that affected more than 18 different minority communities across the Iowa City area.
El Centro de Justicia Laboral vino a existir.
And through all those different communities, the Center for Worker Justice came to exist.
Bueno, el año pasado, bueno, un año anterior, en el 2014, estuvimos marchando por la lucha por 15 aquí en Iowa City.
In around 2014, we started getting active in the fight for 15 in Iowa City.
Entonces, vimos que había mucha necesidad, o sea, En mi caso, por ejemplo, yo tengo 2 trabajos.
We saw that there was a lot of need. For example, in my case, I work 2 jobs.
Trabajo en comida rápida en la mañana y en la tarde en un restaurante americano.
I work in fast food in the morning and in an American restaurant in the evening.
Y todo el tiempo es trabajar rápido, levantarse muy temprano, trabajar 16 horas al día.
And every day you have to work quickly and work, ¿cuántas horas al día? 16 hours a day.
Entonces, es difícil sobrevivir con 7.25.
It's really hard to survive on 7.25.
Entonces, empezamos a marchar en Iowa City, marchamos hacia McDonald's, Milius.
So we started marches in Iowa City. We marched to McDonald's, we marched to Milios.
Marchamos entregando cartas a las compañías temporales.
We started marching and turning in letters of demand to temp agencies.
También hacia el Consejo de los Supervisores de Johnson County.
And we marched to the County Board of Supervisors in Johnson County.
Entregamos volantes, pasamos el mensaje de boca a boca con los amigos, con los hermanos.
We passed the word from mouth to mouth and distributed flyers all over to other brothers and sisters.
Tocando puertas,
Knocked on doors.
haciendo encuestas para ver cómo era la vida de las personas con 7.25.
We surveyed people to find out what's your life like at 7.25.
Entonces tuvimos un foro en la ciudad de Iowa City y más de 50 personas hablaron en el foro a favor del salario mínimo.
When there was a public forum around the minimum wage increase in Johnson County, more than 50 people, one by one, spoke up in support of the minimum wage increase.
Tuvimos oposición también.
There was opposition too.
Pero la oposición, yo creo que en la vida, en cualquier campaña que hagamos o en nuestra vida personal, siempre va a haber oposición.
But you know, I think there's always going to be opposition in every personal struggle or public struggle that we're going to fight.
Pero lo importante es seguir adelante, pelear,
But the important thing is to continue forward and fight,
porque al final la luz va a brillar.
because in the end, the light will shine.
Entonces, tuvimos tres semanas consecutivas de que la mesa de los supervisores iba a aprobar o desaprobar el salario mínimo, el incremento.
There were 3 votes the Board of Supervisors held to determine if they were going to support or not support or deny the minimum wage increase.
Bueno, gracias a Dios, gracias a los aliados, gracias a CWJ y a muchas personas que estuvieron presentes.
Thanks to the supervisors, thanks to CWJ and the allies who were all present to fight.
Los 3 votos de esas 3 semanas fueron a favor.
Each of those 3 votes over those 3 consecutive meetings were in favor.
En noviembre pasado pasaron a 8.20 el salario mínimo.
Last November, our minimum wage went up to $8.20 an hour.
Mayo de este año a 9.15
In May of this year, it went to $9.15.
y en 2017, 1 de enero, a 10.10.
And on January 1st of 2017, we're going to 10.10.
Pero ahí no acaba la batalla.
But the battle didn't stop there.
4 ciudades de Johnson County pasaron ordenanzas en contra del salario mínimo, del incremento del salario mínimo.
4 cities in Johnson County passed measures to stop to lower the minimum wage.
Pero 8 ciudades aprobaron el incremento.
But 8 cities approved the minimum wage increase.
Entonces, hemos tenido algunos contras en el camino, algo en contra.
We've had some pushback on the road, on the path,
Pero seguimos adelante.
but we continue forward.
En la ciudad de Tiffin
In the city of Tiffin,
habían querido pasar un salario exclusivo para muchachos de 15 años.
they wanted to try to pass a youth minimum wage that would be lower for 15-year-old workers.
Luchamos contra esa campaña
We fought against this
y
campaign,
ganamos.
and we won.
Quisieron pasar un salario arriba del 7.25, pero abajo del 8.20.
They wanted to pass a wage that was higher than $7.25 but lower than $8.20.
Y también peleamos
And again, we fought
y ganamos.
and we won.
En O'Livery quisieron no poner, dejar el salario de 8.20, pero no pasar a 9.15.
In North Liberty this spring, they wanted to keep the minimum wage at $8.20 but not go up to the $9.15.
y ganamos por 9.15.
And we fought and we won the 9.15 increase.
Actualmente estamos peleando por que se apruebe el 10.10,
Currently, we're fighting still to make sure that the cities approve the 1010, continue with the 1010.
pero si nos apoyamos unos a otros de brazo en brazo, podemos seguir adelante.
But if we continue to support each other arm in arm, we can continue forward.
La vida es una batalla.
But life is a battle. Life is a struggle.
Es importante que todos trabajemos unidos
It's important that we all work united.
y creo que la vida, el nuevo salario ha cambiado la vida a la gente.
The new salary, the new wage has changed the lives of people.
Yo lo veo en mis compañeros,
I see it in my coworkers.
que ahora sus hijos van a estudiar música, artes marciales, algún deporte.
So now some of them are able to send their children to study music or martial arts or some to participate in a sport.
No ganamos 15-15, pero podemos seguir luchando.
We didn't win 15 yet, but we're going to keep fighting.
Gracias.
Thank you. My name is Robin Clark Bennett, and I'm on the board of the Center for Worker Justice and was proud to be part of this fight along with Max and hundreds of other workers and allies. And I can just throw in, I think, a few other details. There's no question. Although Johnson County is considered a progressive community, and we had, through struggles over the years, joined together and actually won a solid progressive majority on the Board of Supervisors, this was not an easy struggle. And in every step to win the minimum wage increase, and to protect the minimum wage increase, and to educate people and enforce the minimum wage increase has been a struggle, as Max described so well. So, even with a solid Board of Supervisors, there's this tendency, we hand away money to corporations all the time without thinking twice. But somehow little increases for workers after 8 long years with no raise just put everybody, set everyone's nerves on edge, right? Like this is, a big thing, and it's not. It's a small, important thing that affects a lot of people, but it's, that this is a long overdue increase. I mean, what business costs don't ever go up, right? Businesses adjust all the time to cost increases. Every year, every day, every week, businesses adjust to cost increases. So an artificially frozen wage for 8 years, should be a no-brainer in terms of changing that, history as costs have continued to go up. But even, with our positive Board of Supervisors, there was an inclination to compromise and take away future increases. So people had to sign petitions and mobilize and really push and show community support to put that back in our ordinance. So although 1010 is the last official increase in our ordinance, after that there's a commission that's already starting to meet that recommends each year what the increase should be going forward. So it's the fallback is the cost of living increase, but there's also a provision in our ordinance for the commission to recommend more and to assess how it's going and what should happen next. But that was a provision that was going to go away until the community mobilized and stood with it. We came in with a lot of strong momentum and had a lot of allies, and looking back, each of those allies played such an important role. So having home care providers and people who received home care services was very important because some of the home care agencies were some of the loudest voices opposing the minimum wage increase. But there were people there was a woman who comes to mind whose son was receiving home care services who said, I see incredible turnover. Nobody wants to stay in this position, and that hurts my son and his care, and that hurts my family, and that hurts the providers because their wages are so low. Why wouldn't we want people who do this important service to also receive an increase? It was important that there was a restaurant owner who was willing to speak up and say that, he already has to hire people at higher wages who can learn to make his food and do the customer service that he needs as a small business to keep a solid reputation. And it's not fair that the McDonald's of the world and and fast food companies are undercutting their, his business and his wages. And that hurt small businesses, in fact. So he stood up for a higher minimum wage, and that was important. So it was important to think about, social service providers who see the impact on families and family unity when parents have to work multiple jobs and can't be there with their children. It was important to have educators because, a lot of the problems in our community are about low wages in the end. Low wages are dragging down our whole community. They mean that, churches are scrambling to try to provide more and more food and more clothing to make up for the low wages. And then the schools are working harder and harder to try to, to handle the growing poverty their students are facing. It means that, the housing is becoming less and less accessible. And so having housing advocates, having social service providers, having teachers who could tell those stories was really important. So I think, the voices of the dozens of different allies who, from across the spectrum who participated, and most importantly, workers' voices out front and center. It's one thing to talk about those low-wage workers or those teenagers, but when you're looking in the face of a person telling you what it means for them and their families, there's no answer to that. You can stereotype people you can't see, but having brave people like Max and his coworkers and other CWJ leaders who stepped forward and told their stories was absolutely essential. Our fight, we had great momentum coming in, and through the county supervisors vote, we're impressed and excited that you've built momentum for an even higher wage and should continue to fight for more, right? Because ultimately, we all want to continue to build on each other's successes. Our struggle our biggest struggle came in the cities afterwards, and we had to be prepared, and it's forced us to really build strong networks in each community and each city to hold our cities accountable. So as Max described, we've got stronger and stronger committees now of people in North Liberty and in Coralville and in Tiffin and in each of these communities who are working to protect the raise or restore it in the communities where cruel politicians have chosen to lower the wages of people who are living in poverty in their own communities. I think that's some of our big benchmarks. So who was with us? What did we do? Rallies, packed city halls, marches, letters to the editor, what you all know and are doing well, but it took all of that at every stage, and we'll continue to take that to really to defend and protect the straight. So any questions? Oh, Rafael is going to talk about next steps.
Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, that I agree with Max. Right, the fight is never over. And Ronnie said we have a lot of pushback, and now we're going to start a campaign in North Liberty, right? They were there, at the beginning of this year to make sure the 915 passed, right? But now we just met with the mayor yesterday and said, Mayor, tell us, please, what do you think? That 1010 is coming in January. And she said, well, the city council are not happy with this. They wanna, they don't wanna have this. So we going to go back to North Liberty and push for 1010 happen. I mean, even the county say it, but the city doesn't agree because we have some opposition, so we have to go back and organize. Not only the allies, the workers, but now we're going to organize business. But the business part of the is a big player of that. So that's the next step for us, and we're gonna win, of course, right, Max?
Yeah.
So that's the plan. Yes, please.
I'm just curious about you keep saying you get the pushback, and pushback from who? Are you talking about businesses? Are you talking about restaurant owners? Are we talking about all kinds of business owners? I mean, is this primarily where the pushback is coming from? And I guess I would have to ask.
Said, for example, when we were in the forum, there were people from Procter & Gamble who were owners from Procter & Gamble, or managers from Procter & Gamble who were pushing against it. The National Restaurant Association, which I believe is active here, it's almost like they talk to each other at different communities. I mean,
not a
surprise. We heard the
surprise.
same arguments that have been heard since 1938.
Right.
Or before, right, about the minimum wage. The sky will fall and businesses will close. Often it hasn't had a face in response to part of what you're saying. The more we were out there, the more workers were out in front, the fewer businesses were willing to put their face on it, but some have. So the Restaurant Association definitely was not afraid to put its face out against this.
So what
Some
do
of
the
the home
supervisors
care
say?
agencies.
I mean, what do the supervisors say? I mean, in terms of, or the city council members, are they saying that the business people are after them, or are they? I mean, this is what because what I'm ultimately leading to here is, I mean, like, in terms of the workers, in terms of people who are workers in Johnson County, are they fewer in number than the business owners? I mean, don't we vote?
Right.
You know, in terms of workers, is that not the political?
So
at
the big political forum that Max described, there were 54 speakers, 50 in support and 4 against. One was a farmer, one was I guess a P&G manager, one was a restaurant association representative from Des Moines. So city councilors here individually from the businesses have not wanted, this is shameful to oppose this, right? And a lot of businesses have not wanted to be public in their opposition. And so they talk to the council members, but they don't speak in the public, they have not spoken that much in the public forums. So like in North Liberty, we heard a lot of councilors say, well, I've heard from businesses, but they're afraid to speak out, but they don't think it's a good idea. So often it's more like that, more indirect, than sort of publicly saying, I own this place and I think there shouldn't be a higher minimum wage for the lowest paid workers. So, often it was more sort of indirect and more one-on-one with council members and officials than
And how is it related in terms of restaurant workers and restaurant businesses? I mean, there's a lower minimum wage for restaurant workers and good tips. So how is that impacted?
Preguntando cómo funciona por las personas que reciben propinas.
Bueno, para las personas que reciben propina, actualmente el mínimo son $6.25.
So for people who receive tips, he said the minimum wage currently is
$6.25.
$6.25.
Really?
It continued the same portion for the tipped minimum wage that exists in state law continued in the county. So it's the same fraction, 65%, right? It's the same fraction of the full minimum that existed before. So it's continued. The tipped minimum has continued to go up with the increases in the full minimum. Does that make sense?
So, the focus on this is more of a grassroots and a local approach, but I'm curious what you guys might be doing from a statewide perspective as well as from a national perspective, supporting or directing certain candidates, current elected representatives, etc. And if you aren't, how can we help make sure that they're
So you guys have a political arm that officially can lobby, and it can support candidates explicitly. We're a 501c3, so we can't explicitly support candidates and participate in political elections. We can lobby, but we can't support candidates in a race. But we have coordinated with NELP and found them to be a wonderful resource, the National Employment Law Project, which does a lot of studies on this issue and has helped with as a legal resource and has helped with other research. And so that helped us learn lessons from other national struggles. And so when it came up in Tiffin, when the issue of the youth minimum wage came up in Tiffin, they instantly were able to find NELP reports on teens and the minimum wage, right, to discredit, to challenge, the myths around those issues. So almost any issue that came up, there's a NELP report on it, right? And they've really done a good job gathering the national studies and the academic studies on this.
Do you find the opposition in person?
Hemos encontrado que les importa, son Republicans basically, right? Yeah. I mean, these are nonpartisan positions, right? Our county supervisors and the county supervisors aren't, but their city councils are nonpartisan positions. But yeah, it follows political lines, absolutely.
My question is, Iowa City has a very strong dominance because of the universities there. And traditionally, the universities, students would come in, try to make some changes, but they always left. And so I wonder, in this, did you get any support from the students that were working, trying to help support themselves?
Bueno,
there are students who participated generally overall in CWJ and function as interns, serve as interns, and help us on a daily basis.
Hace como 3 años, estudiantes de la universidad vinieron al centro para compartir un programa de, por ejemplo, ayudar a los niños, o sea, de elemental en matemáticas, en lo que es ciencias. Y
There have been students who come and tutor in math and science and
las tareas.
creo que él está hablando más sobre la campaña de salario.
Bueno, hubo intérpretes, o sea, de la universidad, estudiantes que vinieron a apoyar la interpretación.
There are students who came and helped us with interpretation for people who speak English.
Y también apoyo visual, por ejemplo, el video que ustedes acaban de ver, ese video fue hecho por los estudiantes.
Also through communications, like the video that you saw was made by students at the university. So students through the Center for Human Rights, the communications department, social work, a lot of students have participated in various ways in the struggles. But it's interesting that you ask because the university, as a state university, is subject to only state laws, not county laws. In this regard, is their argument. And so they did agree, they went along with the first 2 minimum wage increases, but they're saying they won't go to 1010. And so there's a struggle that university students would be the best place to have. Thousands of university students, I mean, with CWJ support, of course, you know, but I think that that's going to be a very interesting issue as the 1010 comes around if the university continues to say it will not provide that for its students. Because a lot of students, as you say, are struggling to pay off debts and survive and aren't just on sort of an easy ride from their parents. It's just not the economic reality.
Yes, please. Oh, behind us.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I've been 100% fighting the $50 hourly increase. And then I read a long article in the Sunday where they were putting a focus, or at least emphasizing a different aspect of this whole struggle that I hadn't really given a whole lot of thought to before. And it has to do with a lot of poverty-stricken families are on public assistance.
Could you speak up, please?
A lot of the poverty-stricken families are on public assistance programs.
Is this working?
Yeah.
A lot of the public assistance family, they're on public assistance, poverty-stricken people. So things like if you have kids, child care, low rent housing, food stamps, and there's a cliff. If that minimum wage keeps going up and they reach this threshold, they're off. And it can go from like a very small amount of income increase for the year, where now they're losing hundreds or thousands of dollars because they're no longer on those programs. And I'm wondering if he has found that that is a concern.
¿Quieres saber si tú has encontrado que esta es una preocupación de las personas que van a perder sus beneficios? Asistencia de cuidado de niños, en particular.
Bueno, yo en particular en compañeros de trabajo, por ejemplo, a la mañana, mis compañeros que son, la mayoría son madres solteras, trabajan 40 horas o menos de 40 horas y tienen derecho al cuidado de niños.
So a lot of my coworkers are single mothers who work 40 hours and have a right to child care.
Y ganando el actual salario mínimo.
And and they still have it even with our higher minimum wage.
But I think for childcare, that was the lowest, and it was right around that 9 something.
No, more like 12.
Porque
Yeah, it's nearly $12 an hour.
tuve una amiga que no trabajaba, o sea, que quería que cuando le cuidaba a su niño en el Head Start, trabajaba, no trabajaba,
I have
pero
a friend who wasn't working, and when they took care of her child in Head Start,
pero como empezó a estudiar el GD, le cuidaron al niño de tiempo completo.
and when she started her GED, they covered. Pero la preocupación de ella es
Es que
que
las
si
personas
reciben
tienen-
aumentos ya no califican. Pero eso no pasa hasta que ganan como casi 12 la hora. Y por eso.
Pues Bueno, aquí en Johnson County el salario no ha subido más allá de $12 la hora.
The raise hasn't gone higher than $12 an hour in Johnson County, so no conoces personas que han perdido sus
Personas que han perdido beneficios, no.
He doesn't know anyone who's lost their benefits.
Good. I'm
for
just
that reason.
concerned about those people that reach that threshold from that clip, and now
Está
it's
preocupado por
worse
las
off.
personas que ganan suficiente para sobrepasar el límite de ingresos que pueden tener para calificar y pueden salir peor. Está preocupado. So, throughout the history of struggles to raise the minimum wage, the argument has been it's bad for poor people. Like businesses have hardly ever said it's bad for us. They usually say, those poor workers, we're not going to hire as many workers, we're going to have to lay them off, or they're going to have to, or they won't get as many hours, or, the arguments have almost always been framed that way, and it's really tragic. You're asking an important question. I'm not, minimizing the question that you're asking, but I think that it's tragic to watch people held hostage by life-saving benefit programs to contain them and, of course, can keep them down. And so the truth is the wage should go up and the cliff effect should end, and and people should be able to get both. And so it's the same with home care. I mean, we were told some of the home care agencies said, I'm just worried about these low-income people who receive home care services and that they're going to have to receive less hours. And pitting poor people against poor people, is that really our only solution in a wealthy country?
No way.
Right?
It's just wrong.
I know CWJ can't get involved with electoral politics, but I'm curious. If in any of the cities that the city councils have voted to lower the minimum wage, if any political challenges have been mounted around those council members who voted to lower the wage.
Bueno, actualmente no hemos hecho, nosotros no hacemos política precisamente porque como asociación sin fines lucrativos tenemos ciertas restricciones por el gobierno.
He's repeating that we have certain restrictions as a 501c3 to not participate in.
Si tuviéramos algo similar así, creo que nos retirarían ciertos beneficios.
If we got involved in that, we could lose some of our tax protections. I mean, I can just say that, so most of the cities that, while, I know probably Polk County is making a big deal about the communities that rejected the minimum wage. So, if you've been to, Swisher, it's a really small town. So, not that that's not important. I'm shocked that anyone would lower their own workers' wages, right? But Swisher, Shueyville, Oxford, and Solon is, one of the biggest that lowered its workers' wages. In Solon, there hasn't, none of those communities have had sort of enough attention, I think, from progressive forces to but I will say this, in Iowa City, in direct, as part of sort of a lot of gains that have been won and progressive organizing and coalitions that have happened, last fall, for the first time in decades, there's a solid progressive majority in the Iowa City Council, and it had been much more conservative for a lot, and so it was kind of in play previously in terms of what it would do, and it's not now. And so I think that absolutely played a role in the Iowa City Council race.
Por ejemplo, nosotros le llamamos a los supervisores, le llamamos a los senadores.
We called supervisors, we called senators.
Respecto a que queríamos que apoyaran el incremento del salario mínimo.
To ask for their support in the increase of the minimum.
Mandamos cartas personales al editor de Press Citizen y algunos otros periódicos.
And we sent letters to the editor, by the way, to the Press Citizen and other papers.
Y todo eso, nos ayudó.
And all of that helped.
Para que estuviéramos en la opinión de la gente.
To change public opinion.
Las personas leen el periódico todos los días, o quizás no los domingos, pero lo leen.
No todos los días. He said, because people were reading our articles every day or maybe every Sunday, and I was like, no, every day. we were really pushing.
Pero eso es muy bueno.
But that's really important, and that helped a lot.
What about online?
So I would not let you, y'all can fight for 15 on one, it's not gonna turn me out of my house.
Yeah, the childcare program is what we're
There's different, yeah, there are different programs that have different rules that might fall foul of one or another, but it's not every program that, even 15 would not turn me out.
So statistically, she's talking about how some programs, food stamps is kind of, for example, prorated based upon how much you're earning, things along those lines. Has there, with Mike's question earlier, the thought of corporate welfare comes to mind, what Walmart's doing and things along those lines. Has there been, from NELP or somebody else, statistical data showing the increase in the minimum wage has decreased in some fashion their dependence upon state or local programs? Instead of us raising them up, the employers stepping up and actually providing them.
Because really it's a subsidy for the employers who are not paying living wages, right? So that is included in a lot of the academic studies. I can't think of one study in particular that really really is at a sort of clear number in terms of the impact, but I know that that's one of the assessments that's looked at in some of the academic articles that NELP references. There's one that like each 6 months NELP comes out with an overview of all the states and cities that have passed increases in academic research about them. So I feel like that's a good summary that gives you a quick snapshot of.
I'm sorry, what does NELP stand for again?
National Employment Law Project. Yeah, good benefit resource.
Just a talking point. 3 years ago when they passed the commercial tax rate, for property tax rate, one of the big talking points for that was that perhaps they could hire more people or raise the wages on more people. And so I would throw that back into their faces because they're going to use property tax rate, blah, blah, blah. Just trying to make a point. And I like to go out and eat, and if I pay $15 for a hamburger and pay $3 tip, it sure as hell wouldn't hurt me to pay $4 or $5 or $6 for a hamburger at McDonald's.
So, I mean, here's like on the tipped wage, I just want to say this. It's funny to me that they're referencing Minnesota as the example of why they should have a lower youth wage, because Minnesota is actually one of the states where there's no lower tipped wage. Tipped workers get the same as workers as any minimum wage, same minimum as any worker. And you know what? Hamburgers don't cost $20 in Minnesota, but people still eat out. There's still restaurants, and and prices are not that different.
And one more point.
Is it a question, Larry?
Well, I'm just going to say something about the nursing homes. $7,000 to $10,000 they're charging for people now in the nursing home, and I'm trying to figure out how the hell they can't pay more than 50, or they can't pay $15 an hour.
So we should turn it over to you guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we have to answer questions, but and I don't know if you can say more about this, but what we've been hearing a lot here is that we raise the wage, and if you crazy people, raise it too much, that then like places like West Des Moines and Ankeny and Urbandale and Clive will they say opt out, but we all know that they actually they'll take a vote to lower their minimum wage. And so I know that 4 smaller communities in Johnson County did that or did a variation of that, but I'm sure that was there in North Liberty or Coralville, was there some of that? How did you counter that? How did you address that so that major cities stayed with the ordinance?
¿Quieres saber cómo aseguramos que las ciudades se quedaron con
Bueno, respecto a que dicen que se aumenta el salario, las compañías van a quebrar, ¿no?
No, están diciendo que las ciudades van a salir, van a hacer lo que son que están diciendo si exigen demasiado en el condado aquí, que las ciudades
respecto a que se incrementa el salario y las ciudades van a votar en contra, bueno, hemos marchado. O sea,
Well, how did we keep the cities from opting out? Well, we've marched.
antes que los supervisores del condado de Johnson se pusieran a pensar, sacaran su varita mágica y dijeran que van a hablar sobre el incremento del salario mínimo.
After the Johnson County supervisors decided that they responded to the pressure to talk about the minimum wage.
Primero estuvimos yendo a McDonald's, fuimos 2 veces.
We had been going to McDonald's 2 times.
A Millions, o sea, nosotros no fuimos contra un negocio pequeño, nosotros fuimos, por ejemplo, McDonald's es una multinacional.
We always highlighted the big multinational companies that are benefiting.
No fuimos a pelear con Kevin O'Brien, que es el dueño de los McDonald's en Iowa City, sino fuimos contra la multinacional que es McDonald's.
We weren't even just taking on Brian or
Kevin O'Brien.
Kevin O'Brien, who's the head that owns the franchises for McDonald's there. We were taking on the whole multinational, highlighting the whole multinational corporation that benefits from.
Fuimos contra Millions, que es una multinacional también.
And against Milios, which is also a low-paying sandwich place that the multinational.
Fuimos contra Sedona.
And against Sedona staffing.
Marchamos alrededor de la ciudad.
We marched all around the city.
Y también marchamos no en contra, sino marchamos frente a las instalaciones de lo que son los supervisores de Iowa City.
And we marched before the councils.
Después de esas marchas, de hablarle a los supervisores por teléfono, mandarles correos, mandar cartas al editor.
So we kept in constant contact with the elected officials, called them, set up meetings with them, sent letters to the
Dar
editor.
conferencias. Cuando íbamos a las marchas, no íbamos solos, iba la prensa escrita,
Whenever we went to march,
iba
we didn't go
televisión.
alone. We went with the television and the press.
Entonces, pues oímos en las noticias que Iowa City está manifestando a favor del que le meten el
And it
salario.
was clear that the public, Iowa City, was in favor of raising the
Todo ese ruido
minimum wage. So all that noise
afectó los oídos de los supervisores.
affected the ears of the
Y
supervisors
ellos
and council members.
publicaron que iban a hablar sobre el salario mínimo.
And they publicized that they were going to talk about the.
Pero si uno no se une, si uno no marcha, si uno no se mueve,
If you don't unite, if you don't march, nothing. If you don't move, nothing happens. And I'll just add, in North Liberty, which is a city that has a much more conservative city council, they've been very torn about this. But in the last, for the last minimum wage increase, it was very clear talking to the council members that they were looking to lower the wage. But we packed the room, what you guys know how to do, right? We've all learned from each other. We packed the room and, 30 people from North Liberty. It was important that it be people from those cities, right? From North Liberty, from the faith community, from service providers, from, including workers, including union officials, right? All spoke, and nobody had the courage. People came to speak against it, and no one had the courage to do it. And so here are the council members sort of saying publicly, there's just gotta be another side. Maybe we should, there were only a reason to vote no, right? But the fact is that in the light of day, among people willing to stand up, and look, it's not easy for workers to stand up, when their bosses can see them on TV and know that they're standing up for a wage increase. It's not like they're not scared, right? So, so it's not really much of an excuse that businesses were too scared, right? But the fact is, in the light of day, businesses were ashamed, people were ashamed to come forward and say, I believe the poorest people should stay poor, right? And so, that was the key. Absolutely, keeping it public, having people speak out from a lot of different voices in each of the communities, from those communities, not from outside. That was the key. But bring it to a public vote. Tell the public that you're going to vote to deny the first raise that workers are due to receive in 8 long years.
Well, and that's where, I go back to what I was saying before. I realize you have certain restrictions in terms of political activity.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is political. And you all vote. It's not like you don't vote just because you're a member of this organization. And it's where, right, and also there are other political organizations, such as, Chris and I both are active in the Progressive Caucus of the Democratic Party here in Iowa. And it's developing alliances such as that, where we can turn out voters.
Right.
And that could have a real impact on the numbers that you're talking about. Those are the numbers that elected officials
and
are going to
I'm
listen
just
to.
going to say one quick thing in closing up with alliances is that, the alliances were essential that we built, and they were not always comfortable, and they were sometimes painful because it's hard to build alliances under pressure. And so, look, some of our best church allies said, I am getting a lot of heat from my congregants, important congregants who are leaders in my church, and I don't know if I can stand out there. It's going to be hard for my institution to stand out there and take a stand on this issue. And so, on the one hand, of course, workers who are part of that congregation will work to shore them, to shore up the confidence that the rest of the congregation would stand with them. But we also look for other alternatives, like, instead of just one person who wasn't comfortable, there were like 40 ministers who signed on and faith leaders across a lot of religions who signed on together to an increase, and that was more comfortable for some of the people who were maybe not comfortable being out on their own, but were willing. So finding ways, there's a way, right? Okay, so if this person really isn't comfortable taking a stand publicly, will they with other people? And how can we have the one-on-one discussions with their, within their congregations to help, them feel supported in those decisions? And so, but every bit of struggle in building those alliances was worth it because it created power. Last question.
Any support from organized labor?
¿Quieres saber si los sindicatos apoyaron?
Oh, sí. Bueno,
Oh, yes.
sí. Bueno, como dijo mi compañero, el director.
As the director, my coworker, the director said.
Nosotros somos una asociación civil sin fines de lucro.
We're a non-profit organization.
Pero estamos unidos con iglesias, sindicatos.
We're united with churches and unions.
Diferentes iglesias, sindicatos, asociaciones.
Different churches and unions and associations.
Entonces, en todo esto siempre nos han apoyado los sindicatos, las iglesias.
In all this, the churches have always supported us, as well as a lot of churches. Yeah, the unions were incredible. The Federation of Labor was very, very strong.
¿Another question?
La Federación de Sindicatos.
We mentioned the fact that the battle was on, I can think clear back into the 1950s, when businesses had the right to lock out employees, but unions didn't have the right to go on strike. There was always that controversy. That's been 60 years, 70 years, maybe 100 years.
Yeah, they shared, the union shared a lot of the political connections that we hadn't built yet with us, and that was with CWJ, and that was
What I understand what the gentleman in the gray Hawaiian shirt is asking. It's like, why don't we go vote these jerks out of office because if we're citizens we can vote. But my question is, there are only so many of those people replaced every couple of years. And so have you in the Johnson County had an opportunity yet to actually vote for any of the opposition? Because you can't have had very much time since we all started to work on 15.
So, there aren't that many people who voted against. Our challenge is it's a lot of small towns where there needs to be a base built, where we don't have a really strong base. So the reason that Solon went down is because we just don't have a strong, frankly, we don't have a strong base in Solon, right? So recruiting a candidate and building the base, is just not what
My second part of that then is that if we don't build the movement one march at a time, then we're not educating the rest of the people that live in the state or the county. So we have to be doing this every single day, through every single election, right?
Creo que, nosotros tenemos una vez al mes tenemos una junta de membresía invitamos, o sea,
Once a month we have a big membership meeting.
yo invito a mi vecino,
I invite my
una
neighbor,
amiga, mi
my
hermano,
friend, my brother,
y lo invitamos a que se una a CWJ.
and we invite them to join.
Solamente $25 al año individual o $30 por familia.
Individuals pay $25 a month or $30 for a family.
Creo que gastamos más en un six-pack de cerveza.
And people pay that much in a six-pack of beer, so. Awesome. Yeah. Great. Let's have a roll. We are so excited about what you're doing. And what you're doing is helping protect us in North Liberty and other communities. So that's helping everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. That was really great. I think it was a really good discussion. Thank you all for your great questions. It was a really productive discussion. It's nice to be surrounded by intelligent, open-minded people. So my name is Madeline Cano. I'm an organizer with CCI. And so I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in Polk County with our minimum wage ordinance and what's happening with that. So how many people know that something is happening here? Okay, just making sure you're all paying attention. And how many people have been kind of following along in the papers or have gone to meetings? Anybody? Everyone should raise their hands. Come on, let's read the paper. All right, so we've been working for a while, pushing for 15, right? So if you've been with us at CCI from the beginning, really Fight for 15, same time CWJ started back in 2014. So I want to kind of address a little bit some of the things that other folks were talking about in terms of political activity as well, because we do have a political arm, and so that is really key to this fight as well. But first I'm going to talk about what CCI, actually the Fight 15, which is the C3 organization, has been doing. So obviously the task force has been meeting pretty frequently. They had their last meeting yesterday. Yesterday they had their last meeting, and so really what's been going on is we know the task force is kind of stacked against us, really. There's a couple folks on there who are representatives of, social services, but most of them are business owners, politicians, friends of politicians. There aren't too many people, actually there is no one on there that is really speaking up for workers, and so that's why it's so important that all of you and us are involved, and that's why every single task force meeting, we turn out 30 or more people to go to those meetings. And these meetings were dead zones before we came into the room. No one would go to the meetings, no one really cared. That's how policies get put in place that aren't good for workers, families, and our communities. So, very important that everyone gets involved in one way or another. So if you can't attend a meeting, there are other ways that you can get involved as well, and Matthew will talk about that a little bit. So the newest thing that's been happening is the discussion around a youth wage. This was really not on the table when they first started a couple months ago, and now suddenly backdoor conversations, because that's usually how businesses and people in power like to do their conversations, not in the public eye, have been happening, and now there's a discussion of a youth wage for 14 to 17-year-olds to either freeze it at the minimum wage or to make it a percentage of the minimum wage. And so that is a new battle that we are taking up, and what we're doing about that is a job is a job. So it doesn't matter how old you are, you get paid for the work that you do. And that's just the bottom line. That's how it's going to be. And so that's what's happening with the youth wage. So we definitely need more LTEs, letters to the editor, more discussion publicly about why the youth should also be paid a living wage. A lot of them are working, right? A lot of folks aren't just sticking money in their back pockets. College is expensive, and some kids are paying to help to support their families. You could talk to any educator around the state, especially in Polk County. 80% of people in the DMPS, the Des Moines Public Schools, are on free or reduced lunch. That says something, I think, about working families. So it's important to stay aware of the youth wage and how that will affect us. Yeah, go ahead.
What was that percentage?
For
like 72-ish.
Yeah, 72 to 80% of people are on free or reduced lunch.
That's shocking.
It is. It's kind of ridiculous, obviously. I mean, when you have students who should be full-time students focusing on their high school work, and now they're working part-time or even full-time after school to support their families. That's a problem. And so that's a problem for us when we see that they are proposing 1075 by 2019. That's crazy. 1075 is too low now, and it's going to be too low in 3 years. So, but I feel like that number would not have been that high if all of you and CCI had not been pushing for 2 years or longer for 15. 2 years ago, people thought 15 was crazy. But we changed the public narrative because we were constantly talking about 15, why it's reasonable, why we need it, why workers deserve it, and why it's good for our economy as well. So we need to keep that up, keep that happening. So right now, the task force is looking at a 1075 proposal, but that is not the consensus. So I don't want you to read the paper and say, oh, that's what it's going to be. We're going to keep fighting, and I hope that you guys all keep fighting with us. We're going to keep pushing to have a better proposal and eventually get to 15 or higher. We think that the task force will probably meet 1 or 2 more times, and then the Board of Supervisors will put up a vote in September or October. They really, really would like to get a vote something before the session starts. They feel that this lower number will be easier for the legislators to deal with and to accept, and more reasonable. I don't think it's very reasonable. I think we need to set high goals and high standards, and our legislators should follow them. So their goal is they want to have 875 implemented January 1st, so that there's a base discussion for the legislators and something concrete. Lynn County also is looking at that as well. And then after that, their plan is to go up $1
Lynn
every
County
year until
is where the
2019.
city of Cedar
That's their
Rapids is
plan.
located.
And they think that that's a good
That
plan.
is in
So
eastern Iowa.
we would like to keep pushing on that, obviously, and that's where CCI Action comes in, because we are very active during the legislative session. Something that's really important. We all know that legislators, there's lobbyists, right? And they're all in suits and they all represent business. We are the people's lobby, and that house up there is your house. Your tax dollars pay for that, and so we have just as much of a right to be there as other folks. And so encouraging you to join our citizen lobby team during that time. We go up once a week during the session to lobby on issues and other times. Participate in the Rally and Lobby Day. We do action alerts for folks as well. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be pushing very hard because there is a Republican-controlled House. So the task force and the Democrats in Polk County say, well, let's just go a little lower for our minimum wage in the county, and the state will take care of it. The state is not going to take care of anything. The Republicans control the House, and you need the Senate and the House in order for something to pass. And we still have Governor Branstad as the governor, so let's just think about
Brain
that
dead.
for a second. Enjoyable. So that's kind of what's happening so far with the campaign. So
We need to
far, we've
vote them
collected
all out.
thousands of signatures for petitions in support of 15 that we will be giving and delivering to the Polk County Board of Supervisors. We are continuing to flood the Des Moines Register and other outlets with letters to the editor. So if you have some words of wisdom, which I know all of you do, we would love for you to do that. We've definitely been submitting all of those and opinion editorials. If you can make it to a task force meeting, we've been going to all of those. We will continue to go to all of those till I'm blue in the face. We're going to keep going. And our next strategy will be working towards the cities. Since the task force is winding down, the cities are starting to talk about what they're going to do. Matthew touched on this a little bit earlier, and really there are a couple cities that are unsure, and they would like to remove themselves from the process. I want to be clear, when people say that they're going to opt out, that is impossible. A city cannot opt out of a county-wide ordinance. A city must create and pass their own ordinance to effectively lower the minimum wage. That is what they have to do. They just don't want to say that because it sounds awful. Because it is. It's awful. Yes, go ahead.
So, like, if that's correct, then why do the Polk County Supervisors still insist about this whole opting out issue if it's not even accurate?
Great question. It is an excuse for them to not do their jobs. More or less, they want to keep the relationships with the cities good. That's what they've been saying. They don't want to disrupt business as usual. We don't like business as usual. We want what's good for our communities and our families and workers. And ultimately, it's good for business as well for this to go up. So really, it's easier for the Polk County Democrats and the supervisors to say, well, let's just blame it on the cities. They're going to opt out. We got to go lower. We need to be more reasonable. It's not our job to be reasonable. It's their job, I guess, to try and do what's politically possible. It's our job to hold them accountable and push them further. And that's what we need to keep doing. So again, it's just an excuse. It's water under the bridge. I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to keep going forward and keep pushing for 15 because that's what workers deserve and what they need. I can't think of anything else really about updates. Am I missing anything?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so they keep on insisting that this wage increase by 2019 is going to send a message to the state legislator. So, like, in a way, like the Democratic, I think almost every Democratic nominee that's going to like the Congress or the Senate is proposing $15 an hour. So,
Correct.
is it possible, or would it make a difference if they were present at these Polk County meetings or somehow involved? So then they're like, no, we are going to be pushing for 15 or something.
I think it's helpful, but I don't think that we should rely on politicians anymore, right? That's the point of this meeting, is that grassroots organizing works and gets the goods. And, you know, why do we have to rely on Patty Judge or anyone else to come and speak to the other politicians? Really, if we all show up together, the public is a scarier force than one guy or woman in a suit or a pantsuit, whatever they choose to wear. So that's the point. Grassroots organizing works. When people get together and collective bargain and work together and fight for something that they want, it works. So if this was to happen and CCI or CWJ wasn't around and no one said anything, the minimum wage discussion wouldn't be happening. It'd still be at $7.25.
We have talked to some local lawmakers that are weigh in with the board of supervisors. So that has been something that we've been talking about.
Yep, there's been some discussion about it, and I think that's good, but again, we have to remember that those people that are speaking up, who are current state legislators, we need to hold them accountable come January when we say, hey, remember back in July when you said that you were going to do this? I'd like you to do that now, please. That'd be great. So we gotta remember those things. So important, be active in CCI, be active with CCI Action, and grassroots organizing gets the goods. So, oh yeah, yes, I got it. So, speaking of grassroots organizing, we are going to watch a video that the lovely Emily Harmon, who was our online organizer but has now moved to Chicago for film school, made a beautiful video about working families in Polk County, and we would like you to watch it. And then we'll have some action steps you can take. Thanks.
Waves of cities and states across the nation are raising the wage. Polk County could be next. It is good for our workers, it is good for our families, it is good for our businesses, and it's good for our communities.
I work for a union and I make $20 an hour, which is a good living wage. However, on that wage, I support my mother and my daughter and my granddaughter. My mother and daughter don't make $15 an hour, so it helps them to be financially set through me, so I still live paycheck to paycheck. For me and my family, $15 means that everybody would be able to hold their own weight. They would have confidence in themselves and their lives to be able to be sufficient to take care of themselves. They wouldn't rely so much on me, and I can have freedom, they can have freedom. So for me, it would set our family free.
I'm a professional pet stylist. I make $8.37 an hour and more commission. My commission depends on the work available, and the work available is very unpredictable. I am a sole provider for my younger sister. $15 an hour would mean stability and security for the both of us.
As a person of faith, I support a living minimum wage of $15 an hour. It's good for our workers, it's good for our families, it's good for our communities, and it's good for our businesses. Now, it's important to note that it's a living minimum wage. That doesn't mean any luxury or anything that would go beyond basic needs. As clergy, I care for the well-being of the people I serve, and part of that is having the basic needs met. That's what I support, a living minimum wage of $15 an hour.
School. Otherwise, you can come back and make more movies. So, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank everyone from Center for Worker Justice again for joining us. very, very, very inspiring. We want to do the same here. And Maddie really touched on a lot of the following ways that we can take action. She mentioned write letter to the editor, attend the task force meetings, contact your supervisors. For those of you on Facebook, share this video. Max was saying that what worked in Johnson County was making a lot of noise everywhere, over and over again. So let's make a lot of noise in the cities on social media, and really push that. I mean, so 1075 is better than where we were going to be at. But as Maddie said, we've been fighting for 15 for a while now, and we've kept saying 15, 15, 15. Well, the first proposal debated, considered by the minimum wage task force, was only going to go to 925. But so they're up to 1075 in large part because of what we have all done. So we are going to keep it up. We're going to keep saying 15, and then there will be more, people running for office who that'll be much more reasonable to them because we need to make that climate for them. So just keep that up. And then also on your agenda, it's like they're going to have another minimum wage task force meeting or two. We don't know the date yet, but when we do, we'll let you know. Contact them. On our Facebook page, there's a link. It's with this video where you can go and
on Facebook. It is
it's really easy that way. So
CCI Action is the Facebook page.
Goes to the cities. We need to have large numbers of people. We need to have
Twitter
people that want to do a march
at
to the West Des Moines City Council.
CCI or at CCI Action.
And so on and so forth.
It's
iowacci.org. Before we can adjourn and kind of maybe mingle, but then by 8 o'clock, let's all be out of the church because Ryan. I know Ryan, you'll stay here, but anyway. Well, I also want to thank Pastor Ryan Arnold for letting us use this space. Speaking of utilizing this space, we're going to be here on August 20th. It's our annual statewide convention. And in the beautiful First Christian Church that has a lot of tradition in social justice. What do you need to do? Yeah, they're kind of mingling around there. If you don't need more, I'll hand them out, but there's some. See? Anyway, we fell in love with this church and its history and tradition back when we had our what was it called? Putting Families First Presidential Forum. Anyway, so we are having our statewide convention here on August 20th. Lots of great speakers. Larry Cohen.
I will be here to bring that one live. There will be other events coming up before then. I will definitely be here
Who wants to sign up right now?
broadcast
No,
from the convention.
Marvin actually signed up. He brought his check today. He's like, when should I say? Do it when we're talking about the convention. So, so thank you, Marvin. It's going to be a great time. Marvin was so excited. He didn't want to hold on to the check until now, but I forced him to do it. And then if you're not a member, come talk to one of the organizers. We love members. Members are our power. They are what drives our work. And we're fun, right, Larry? We're fun. We call each other in the morning and say, like, hey, are you going to wear your Raise the Wage t-shirt? Okay, I'm going to wear mine too, and we're going to go to this meeting. So we have fun fighting for social justice. But I think that covers it. I want folks to feel free, mingle, lead. Yes?
Are you going to have any presence at the it's kind of expensive to do.
Yeah, we will not have a booth. We'll
That's
look for
Iowa State Fair
opportunities to maybe do petitioning.
coming up later this month.
Go ask a candidate some tough questions because actually
The soapbox.
Maddie
Yeah,
mentioned
hit
that
the
we
soapbox.
Maddie mentioned we have CCI Action Fund. Well, CCI Action Fund kind of was born right around the same time that we went to the state fair and simply asked Mitt Romney a question about Social Security and Medicare. And then he said, corporations are people, my friend. And that was around the time that CCI Action Fund actually was born. It's like,
And that's gone viral.
That was probably a political activity. But we might do some petitioning outside, but you're right, it's the cost and the rate of return is kind of questionable. So, but it's definitely something to
that's worth considering, and that's why we do petitioning at farmers markets, do door knocking, etc. Good, sir?
I just had something that I wanted to add, kind of piggyback on what you were saying earlier. You can't really rely on a lot of the politicians. Well, something that you may not be aware of is there are a lot of precinct chairs that are open within Polk County to be on the central committee for Polk County. There's a meeting coming up of the Democratic Party. There's another party? The next meeting coming up is going to be on the 16th. If that's something that you're interested in, you can certainly contact me. Contact the party. Monday. Yes, I'm sorry. And that's an opportunity as well for you to take these kind of progressive.
Contacting Iowa Democratic Party headquarters about being on this central committee for various reasons.
What Larry Cohen, who's going to keynote our convention, is I hope that he touched on that, because I've heard him say that before, because he was after he left CWA, he went and did some work with Bernie, and he said basically that he's like,
CWA is Communication Workers of America.
He said there's at the local level on up, like this was after like the platform committee did not incorporate everything around TPP and trade issues, and he was a little livid because he'd been awake for a long time too, because he's a super delegate. But he was very livid. He said some of these Democrats have lost their souls, and we need to take over the party and change it from the bottom up. And it's kind of like what you were saying. Marvin, did you have something?
I had a comment here. We're talking about partisan politics. When you stop and think of all of the different types of elections, like the city, the school board, to your boards of trustees, and all of those, that's where you start building your grassroots, not only with the election for those, but also sometimes they rely on certain people for technical assistance, and those are the ones that you want to bring into your camp, because you'll, I think your senators at the congressional level will tell you it's their staffers that talk to them. So you have to talk to the staffers before the word gets out. But when you consider all of these other boards that people are on, including your conservation boards and things like that, you can bring up to the point that what are you paying your workers?
Right.
And where do you get them?
I heard, and then we can keep talking. But anyway, I heard from, I think it was, and Robin, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but our friends in labor, they have their WIN program, where it's about, I don't know what it stands for. I know it stands for something.
Working Iowa Neighbors.
Working Iowa Neighbors. It's not winning. But anyway, someone told me, they're like, this is about, if they held races for local dog catchers, we would run somebody for that office. It's about the most basic level, going from there on up. So yeah, no, kind of like that. Thank you all very much. I'm sure we will all see each other again, and we'll talk again. Thank you for being here. Let's go win.
That will conclude this event. I believe there's something tomorrow that I'll be streaming. I'm going to look that up right quick. I'm just pulling out my tablet to look up at events for tomorrow. Today is National Night Out, but I won't be going to that. End prison brutality at the Iowa State Penitentiary. That event, splitting it up, that is tomorrow at 3 p.m. So I will go there and live stream that. there's not only police brutality on the street, brutality by prison and jail guards. So I will stream that at the 3 o'clock Central, so look for that. And if you like what I'm doing and you want me to continue, please support my work. You can go to www.gofundme.com/OccupierKaylin. That's KAYLYNN. At www.gofundme.com/OccupierKaylin. Or if you do not have GoFundMe, or you do not have access to GoFundMe, or you don't have the supporting currencies that it supports, you can go to PayPal at www.paypal.com, and in the send money to line, enter the email address STRAINSOP@AOL.com. Again, www.paypal.com, and in the send money to line, enter the email address STRAINSOP@AOL.com. That will help me cover the cost of my live streaming and broadcasting, and I'm also trying to raise money to buy a new desktop computer so I can do actual home broadcasting and not crash every time I try, because my desktop computer is 9 years old. It doesn't have the power to do it. Laptop, which was a gift, is almost 5 years old. It lacks the resources. I can't broadcast on that. Plus the software, the operating systems are out of date for that. So I need a new computer, so I'm fundraising for that. So I can do more home broadcasting at home on a live stream, or I can do Ustream Producer and other things like that, so I can do more of that. And again, thanks for watching, and see you on the stream.